Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf for IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab matrix labs, the video number 94. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have stopped the last time at the AI tools, and we will try to discuss the volume shadow copy topic uh, through a dialogue between a senior IT and a junior IT. The answers of both will be generated by the AI tool, which is like the AI tool is questioning and answering itself, which make the answer more rich, and you will get better results, because here it's you are assuming that uh, two persons are talking to each other, and the dialogue is getting from simple talking to complex talking. So when I try to use this method with the AI tools, it gives me better results, especially with something like Gemini and Claude. The results is fantastic. Actually, ChatGPT 4.0 was not that good, even 0.1 even not that good. So let's see first the answer of ChatGPT. Here I'm asking him to discuss volume shadow copy concepts and applications. So here we will discuss first phase, concept, explanation, and visualization. Senior IT introduction. Let's delve deeper into understanding volume shadow copy by exploring its inner workings, advanced use cases, and troubleshooting techniques. Volume shadow copy not only creates point-in-time snapshot of data, but also ensure application consistency, especially in complex environments like Active Directory, SQL Server, and Exchange. So all of these are working around the clock, so the volume shadow copy is a better solution to take backup of these running applications or databases. These snapshots are creating user a coordinated effort between volume shadow copy components, requester, writer, and provider. Okay. Uh, and actually who coordinates between all of these are the volume shadow copy service. Okay, so to minimize downtime and data loss, let's move beyond the basics and explore each component in details, all these components in detail. Junior IT task. So this is, I think, is stated, or the senior IT is talking to the junior IT. Junior IT task: explain the advanced concepts of volume shadow copy, including its components and their interactions. Provide detailed real-world scenario where VSS ensures application consistency. Illustrate the concept with a detailed flow diagram incorporating the roles of the requester, writer, and provider. Junior IT response. So I asked him to simulate the answer of the junior IT and simulate the answer of the senior IT. Here I am, which role I am taking? I am the junior IT. I didn't. So in a normal situation, you should provide the answer and he will evaluate the answer. But here I'm asking him to do both sides. He will simulate both answers for both sides. If you need to exercise, then you can ask him not to simulate the answer of the junior IT, and you give him the answer and he evaluates the answer and guide you to more or guide you through your answers, and give you better explanation and better explanation of explanation and better answers. Okay, but here I'm asking him to simulate my answer. So junior IT response, advanced explanation. VSS cooperates by coordinating three main components. Requester initiates the snapshot creation, like backup software like Windows Server Backup or Veeam or whatsoever. Then we have the writer, ensures data consistency by freezing I/O operations momentarily, example SQL Server or Exchange writers. Provider handles the actual creation and storage of the snapshot, example the system provider using copy on write. These answers is a little bit technical. We need to make it more simple. So he's not doing a good job in explaining these concepts in a simple way. VSS enables consistent backups even for open or locked files by ensuring all writers are temporarily paused while a snapshot is taken. So enables consistent backup for even blocked by ensuring all writers are temporarily paused while a snapshot is taken. Not all writers. This is not also a good thing here. He's saying Actually, the writers are the one that will pause the open file or locked files, okay? Will pause writing to these files on the hard disk. Anyway, real world scenario, consider a scenario where a company Active Directory domain controller is being backed up. Active Directory transaction must be consistent during the backup. The ADVVSS writer, this is one of the writers on the Windows server, ensures that incomplete transactions are committed or rolled back, providing a clean snapshot of the AD database. So we need to make sure before taking backup of the Active Directory database that there is currently no transactions pending to be written to the hard disk. Okay, and this is uh, the job of the ADVSS writer. Okay, then we have the flow diagram. We have the backup software. This is the volume shadow copy framework. We have the writer. We have the provider. We have the application data. We have the writer that frees I/O. Okay, then snapshot ready for backup. The provider creates the snapshot, okay, and return it back to the requester. Okay, so but this is also not a good diagram. We have more or better diagrams. Okay, senior feedback, evaluation of understanding. Excellent, you have articulated the roles of the VSS components accurately and highlighted their interdependencies. Again, he didn't. This should be VSS volume shadow copy, and there is an integration, or it is the coordinator between the writer, the provider, and the requester. Okay, so again, the answer seems to be not that good from my point of view. Clarification: when the provider can be a hardware based like SAN storage snapshot, or software based like Windows System Provider. This we have seen before in the previous videos. Each has different performance implications. Alternative example. Another example would be backing up Exchange Server. The VSS writer ensures all mailboxes are in consistent state by committing pending transactions and roll back incomplete ones. Again, this is a good example. Make sure that we don't have any transactions pending to be written to the hard disk from the mailboxes, and after that we can freeze writing to the hard disk by the mailboxes, and then we can take a backup of the mailboxes. Okay, practical application suggestion: for Active Directory environments, we should schedule VSS backups during low activity periods. This is a good best practice to minimize I/O impact. Additionally, test snapshot restoration periodically to validate data integrity. Okay, phase 2, practical application and case study. Senior IT scenario. Scenario: organization file server hosts multiple critical shared folders. A users report that several files are missing and the backup software fails to restore them because the shadow copies are corrupted. Additionally, the VSS admin list writers command show that file share writer is in a failed state. Junior IT task: analyze the situation, identify potential root cause, propose a detailed recovery plan, including how to restore VSS functionality and recover the missing files. Justify your approach with technical reasoning. Junior IT response: analyze the analyzation. The file share writer failure indicates a possible corruption in the VSS metadata or insufficient storage for shadow copies. Okay, so the writer file share writer failed. Why is that? A possible corruption in VSS shadow copy maybe, or sufficient, we don't have sufficient storage. Other contributing factors might include recent Windows update causing conflicts. That can be a reason. Hardware issues on the volume hosting the shadow storage. We cannot save to the storage. Maybe this is the problem. Resource constraints as low disk space or memory. Okay, this can be also one of the reasons. How to recover that? We need first to list shadow storage to see if we have any uh, this to list the storage, uh, not listing the copies or the shadow copies. Okay, expand the allocated resource if it is insufficient. Okay, this is the commandlet. Restart the volume shadow copy service and the file share writer. This can be also one of the things to restart the services. Run a consistent check on the volume. Maybe the volume have, or the volume that we take the shadow copies on is fragmented or have errors, so we need to check the hard disk by this command, check disk, so on, so, and fix it if there is any bad sectors or something. Delete corrupted shadow copies and create a new snapshot. Okay, Test restoring from newly created snapshot. Restarting services resolve transit issues, expanding storage ensures sufficient space for snapshots, and run check disk fixes the system level issues. Deleting corrupted snapshot and starting fresh ensures that the future backups are reliable. Okay, this is the answer of the junior. As for the senior, he's saying that strengths your analysis is through and your recovery plan covers multiple potential root causes. Using check disk and expanding storage are particularly good steps. Improvements. Always check event viewer. This is one of the things to check the event viewer for related VSS issues and system errors. These logs often pinpoint the root cause. Alternative approach, if the problem persists, consider registering VSS components. This is not recommended by Microsoft. So even though I give him the PDF for Mr. Low Bundle Poll, and it was clearly stating that you cannot register VSS shadow components. DLL for the VSS shadow, this is not a good thing. So it seems that it didn't read the PDF and it's giving us wrong recommendations. Best practice, document all changes made during troubleshooting and share them with the team to improve collective knowledge. Okay, ongoing iterative exercise scenario. Design and implement a monitoring script that alerts when shadow copy usage exceeds 80%. We have seen this with Claude. Junior RT creates the script. Senior RT reviews and suggests enhancement. Where is the script? He didn't give us the script. Simulate a disaster recovery scenario where the domain control must be restored from the volume snapshot. Junior RT performed the restoration in a test environment. Senior RT evaluates the process and discusses ways to improve recovery. Also, he didn't give us the steps to do that. Scenario 3. Troubleshoot a scenario where VSS fails due to a third-party provider conflict. Junior RT identifies the conflicting provider and proposes a solution. Senior RT provides feedback and alternative. Again, he didn't give us the scenario completely and what is the solution or what is the problem. All of these are summarized steps. By advancing through these scenarios, you will deepen your understanding of VSS and develop practical troubleshooting skills. Let me know when you are ready for the next challenge. So the answer is a disappointing for me. Okay, so this answer is not that good. If you go to Gemini Pro, the experimental platform or the experimental AI, which is getting good scores on different websites. Let's see how this will happen or how this he will explain this topic. If we begin from here and tell him to begin reading from here.
Okay, let's dive into the world of VSS shadow copy and troubleshooting. I'll be your seasoned senior IT guide, and you'll be the eager junior IT administrator ready to learn. We'll follow the structure you outlined, starting with Phase 1. Topic: Understanding VSS, shadow copy, and basic troubleshooting. Phase 1. Concept, explanation, and visualization. Senior IT. All right, let's start with the basics. VSS, or Volume Shadow Copy Service, is a fundamental technology for backups and data recovery in Windows environments. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want you to explain VSS to me in your own words as a junior IT admin. Think about what it is, how it works, and why it's important. Then, try to come up with a real-world example, and if you can draw a simple diagram or outline the process. Don't worry about being perfect. This is about understanding the core concept. Junior IT's turn. Junior IT. Okay, so VSS, or Volume Shadow Copy Service, is like a built-in snapshot feature for Windows. It allows us to take a picture or a snapshot of a volume at a specific point in time, even if files are being used or changed. This is super helpful for backups because we can get a consistent backup without stopping services or kicking users off the system. I think it works by coordinating with applications through something called writers to make sure their data is in a good state before the snapshot is taken. Then it somehow freezes the data, takes the snapshot, and lets the applications continue working. The actual snapshot is handled by a provider, and Windows has its own, but storage systems can have theirs too. Real-world example. Imagine our file server. We need to back it up regularly, but users are accessing and modifying files all day. With VSS, we can schedule backups to run during the day. VSS will create a shadow copy of the file server's volume. and the backup software will back up from that shadow copy. Users won't even notice, and we'll have a consistent backup. Visual, simple diagram. Plus, plus plus, plus plus, plus backup software.
So this is the backup software. This is the service, and this was not stated by ChatGPT, and this is the correct one. The service coordinates between, so the service will take the order of backup from the requester, forward it to the writer, and then the writer should freeze the access to the application or database on the hard disk. Then it will talk to the provider, which will take the snapshot, and then it should talk again to the writer to unfreeze and then return it back to the. I think this is not correct. The service or VSS shadow service should coordinate with all. So it will take the request and then it will talk to the writer and then it will freeze the action on the hard disk. It will talk to the provider to take the backup and then talk the service talks again to the application writer to unfreeze and then return back or talk to the backup software requester to give him the snapshot. So this is not a correct answer. If we try to get the real get to the real let me go to uh, the real drawing. Here you go. This is the correct one. So the server shadow copy coordinates between the four. Okay, so this is not a correct answer, even though he is getting it, but not in that good. So if you go there and try to read the answer,
Junior IT. So, the backup software requests a backup, VSS coordinates with the application to get ready, the provider takes the snapshot, and then the backup software backs up from the snapshot. Is that sort of right? Senior IT's turn. Senior IT. That's a good start. You've grasped the essential idea of VSS and its purpose. You're right that it's like taking a snapshot, and it's crucial for consistent backups. Your real-world example of the file server is spot on. However, let's refine your understanding a bit and make your diagram more accurate. Evaluation and clarification. Concept of freeze. You mentioned VSS freezes the data. While it's a good analogy, it's more accurate to say that VSS tells the writers to momentarily pause write operations and prepare the data for a consistent snapshot. This is often referred to as quiescing. The freeze is very brief, usually less than 60 seconds. Writers and providers. You've got the right idea about writers and providers. Writers are application-specific components that ensure data consistency. For example, the SQL Server writer will ensure all database transactions are complete before the snapshot. Providers are responsible for the actual creation and management of the shadow copy. The default provider in Windows uses a copy-on-write mechanism. Diagram improvement. Your diagram is a good starting point, but can be improved to better represent the flow and the different components involved. Detailed explanation. Let's break down the VSS process step by step. Request. The backup software, the requester, initiates a backup request to the VSS service. Discovery. VSS identifies the appropriate writers based on the data being backed up. Prepare for backup. VSS sends a prepare backup event to the writers. Freeze. VSS sends a freeze event to the writers. Writers pause write I/O requests and complete any in-progress operations, ensuring data consistency. This is a crucial step for applications like databases to prevent corruption. Snapshot creation. VSS tells the provider to create the shadow copy. This is a very fast operation, often taking only seconds. Thaw. VSS sends a thaw event to the writers. The writers resume normal I/O operations. Post-snapshot. VSS performs any necessary post-snapshot tasks. Backup. The backup software reads data from the shadow copy, not the live volume, to perform the backup. Backup complete. VSS notifies the writers that the backup is complete. Alternative analogy. Think of VSS as a skilled photographer taking a picture of a busy market. Requester, the event organizer who wants a photo of the market. VSS, the photographer's assistant who coordinates everything. Writers, the stall owners' applications who tidy up their stalls and make sure everything is arranged nicely for the photo. Provider, the camera that takes the actual snapshot. Freeze, the moment when everyone holds still for the photo. Thaw, everyone resumes their activities after the photo is taken. Shadow copy, the photograph itself, a perfect representation of the market at that specific moment. Revised diagram. Plus, 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 plus.
So I think here this was deliberately the junior IT answer was not correct. So deliberately the senior IT will explain it or correct it. So we can see here that this is the requester, this is the service going to the writer, and then freeze and then return back to the VSS service talking to the provider to take the copy, and then uh, going back I think to, so here for freeze and then create the backup. Okay, and then this is 4 and 5, and then 6 we need to talk to the writer to release the freeze, and then where is 7, where is 4, 6, where is number 7? So this is a snapshot. I think it will not go directly, so there is 7 missing. uh, where is number 7? So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So it's a little bit close to that answer, which means that the AI was not trying to give a wrong answer, but to clarify that the junior IT assumption was incorrect. Anyway, so this is a good thing. I thought it was a bad answer, but actually it's not. So if you go through this one and complete the answer.
Backup software requests a backup. VSS service discovers and prepares writers. VSS service sends prepare backup, freeze, and thaw events to writers. VSS service instructs the provider to create a snapshot. Provider creates and manages the shadow copy. Backup software backs up data from the shadow copy. Practical application in our Active Directory environment. In our organization, we can use VSS for backing up domain controllers. VSS ensures consistent backups of Active Directory, including the system state, which is critical for disaster recovery. Backing up file servers. As you mentioned, VSS allows us to back up file servers without interrupting user access. Backing up application servers. VSS ensures application-consistent backups of servers running SQL Server, Exchange, or other applications that have VSS writers. Creating shadow copies for user file recovery. We can enable previous versions, which uses VSS to allow users to restore previous versions of files directly from their workstations. Senior IT. Now that we've gone through this, do you have any questions? In the next phase, we'll move on to a practical scenario. In a Phase 1. Phase 2. Practical application and case study analysis. Scenario 1. Senior IT. Okay, let's put your knowledge to the test. Here's the scenario. Scenario. You receive an alert that a backup job for a critical file server, FS01, has failed. The backup software is Veeam Backup and Replication, and the error message
So let's wait guys for a minute. Let's continue guys. Here is the explanation of Gemini experimental 1206.
Mention avait estimé. The backup is scheduled to run at 2 a.m. daily. Your task. Analyze the scenario. What could be the potential causes of this VSS timeout error? Propose a solution. How would you troubleshoot and resolve this issue? Justify your approach. Explain why you chose those specific steps. Take your time to think it through. Remember what we discussed about VSS writers, providers, and the shadow copy process. Also, consider what tools you can use to diagnose the problem. Junior IT's turn. Junior IT. All right, let me analyze this. A VSS timeout usually means that the writers took too long to prepare for the snapshot during the freeze phase. 1. Potential causes. High I/O load on FS01. If the server is very busy, especially with disk I/O, the writers might take longer to prepare. Since the backup runs at 2 a.m., maybe there are other scheduled tasks or processes running at that time, causing high I/O. Long-running transactions. If there are applications with long-running transactions that don't complete within the 60-second freeze window, that could also cause a timeout. Issues with a specific VSS writer. Maybe one of the writers on FS01, like the system writer or a writer for a specific application, is having problems and not responding quickly enough. Insufficient shadow copy storage space. Even though it's a timeout, if there's not enough space allocated for shadow copies, it might be contributing to the problem. Issues with the VSS provider. Although less likely, there could be an issue with the VSS provider itself. 2. Proposed solution. Here's how I would approach this. Check the event viewer. First, I check the application and system event logs on FS01 around the time of the backup failure, 2 a.m. I'd look for errors or warnings related to VSS, VolSnap, or any specific writers. The event logs often have detailed error codes and descriptions. Use sadmin commands. Sadmin list writers to check the status of all writers. I'd look for any that are not stable or have errors. Sadmin list shadow storage to check the shadow copy storage usage and allocation. Resource monitor/performance monitor. I would use Resource Monitor or Performance Monitor to check the disk I/O activity on FS01 around 2 a.m. This will help me see if there's a high I/O load. Check scheduled tasks. I will review the scheduled tasks on FS01 to see if any resource-intensive tasks are running at the same time as the backup. Restart VSS writers. If I find a specific writer that's failing or seems to be the culprit, I'll try restarting its associated service. Increase shadow copy storage. If the shadow storage is close to full, I'll use Sadmin resize shadow storage to increase the allocation. Test with disk shadow. To isolate the problem, I can use disk shadow to manually create a shadow copy during a period of high load and see if it times out. 3. Justification. Event viewer. It's the first place to look for clues about what went wrong. It often provides specific error codes and messages that can point you in the right direction. Sadmin. These commands are essential for checking the status of VSS components and managing shadow copies. Resource Monitor. This helps identify if high I/O is contributing to the timeout. Scheduled tasks. It's important to rule out conflicts with other tasks. Restarting writers. This can often resolve temporary glitches with writers. Increasing shadow copy storage. This ensures that insufficient storage is not the cause of the problem. Disk shadow. This allows for controlled testing of VSS outside of the backup software. Junior IT. How does that sound? Is there anything I've missed or any other steps I should consider? Senior IT's turn. Senior IT. That's an excellent analysis and a very well-structured approach. You've covered the key areas and demonstrated a good understanding of how to troubleshoot VSS issues. Your proposed solution is comprehensive and logical. Feedback on proposed solution. Strengths. Systematic approach. You've followed a logical troubleshooting process, starting with information gathering, event viewer, Sadmin, and moving towards more specific diagnostics and solutions. Correct tools. You've identified the right tools for the job, event viewer, Sadmin, Resource Monitor, Disk Shadow. Understanding of VSS concepts. You've correctly identified potential causes related to writers, I/O load, and shadow copy storage. Good justification. Your explanations for each step are clear and accurate. Areas for improvement/additional considerations. Check for specific errors. When checking the event viewer, you should not only look for errors but also pay close attention to the specific event IDs and error codes. The document provides a long list of event IDs starting on page 150 that will help you pinpoint the issue. This will give you even more targeted information to work with.
So he's talking about page 150 in the documentation. Let's go and see what this page contains. So here how we can get the logs. First we need to create a custom view to filter application events concerning VSS. We have the critical warning and errors, and then click OK. This is a custom view, and then this will be the errors, and then we can see here this is event IDs for VSS, event ID 2 source, saying here a lot of events concerning volume snap. This is I think related to volume shadow copy, but for the shadow copy for the volume. Shadow copy of volume 2% could not be created because the volume 3%, which is specified as a part of the diff area, it is not. So these are some errors. Okay, event 2, source, volume snap, event 3, event 5, event 9. A lot of events actually. As we can see here, all of them are events related to the snapshot. Okay, all of these, event 24, event 26. So we can see a lot of events here. Is there any explanation about how to solve these errors? So this is a good thing. This documentation is grouping all of the events related to the volume shadow copy, which is a good thing. All of these are events. Very, very good documentation. Mr. Low van der Poel had already documented a lot of errors. So this is series Alto and Nets resolving VS Writers errors in Windows 8 Server 2012 and up. So this is a database. So he's really giving us, this is an article to solve issues concerning the writers. These are the different writers and their correspondent service, like the one Veeam has provided us with. Repairing writers. Okay, event and error handling, troubleshooting. Okay, so as we can see here, this is the strategy to solve errors, but again, he is not stating what error related to what event. Okay, so if we go further, let's continue. These are the services related to the volume shadow copy. Of course, volume shadow copy is the first one. Distributed transaction coordinator service, COM plus system application services. What are the errors? So we can see, for example, this is an error. Okay. So again, what we can see here, okay, there is a strategy for repairing. So I think the documentation also is good. So here we can see is giving us a strategy for repairing a problem concerning writers. First of all, reboot the server. For some reason, if you haven't rebooted in a while, you can cause VSS to malfunction, so we can reboot the server. Strategy 2 out of 11, so there's 11 strategies to do so. Open VSS admin, delete all shadow copies. Okay. So he's giving us a strategy. I think this is very, very good. And we can see also the command list writers to give us if there is any errors. No errors, no errors. Okay, so we can see all of these. If you see a VSS error, then try restarting the following. Okay, all of these services. And also restart the affected service, for example, Hyper-V VSS writer. So there is, you can restart all of these if there is a problem with a certain writer, but you want to make sure that this writer is related to one of these services. Okay, so for example, if we go to Veeam here, for example, he's saying that SQL Server, it's have a service called SQL Server VSS writer. Okay, so this need to be restarted. Anyway, so this is a table. Each writer is related to a certain service. For example, registry writer, you need to restart the volume shadow copy service itself. Okay, so we need to make sure which service is related to which writer. Okay, so if you go further, uh, this is strategy 2, and then strategy 3 is talking about uninstall all backup utilities. Maybe this is something. So I think he's given us a lot of options to troubleshoot VSS repair strategy. So the command isn't available in Windows XP. So this is in Windows XP. I think this is a little bit old documentation maybe. Anyway, so we can see there is a lot of strategies here. Again, you can try to register all VSS and comms by components running the so and so, but this is not recommended. Okay, register all VSS and comms. This is not recommended. Okay, as Mr. Paul says that it will do a lot of damage. It will not work. So we can see a lot of things here. If it's a virtual machine, you need to install the latest VMware tools. This is for VMware virtual machines. So there is a lot of strategies to focus on and see and read. Actually, very, very good documentation. Okay? Even though he's not saying that the certain event is solved by a certain solution. Anyway, so this is a good thing. We can continue with the assumption. So there is a lot of useful information we can use from the PDF, and it's already stated by the AI.
With Veeam-specific troubleshooting. Since the backup software is Veeam, you could also check Veeam's logs and knowledge base for any known issues or specific troubleshooting steps related to VSS timeouts. Consider application logs. In addition to the system and application event logs, check the event logs of the applications running on FS01, especially if any specific VSS writer is failing. For example, if the SQL Server writer is having problems, check the SQL Server error logs. Persistent versus non-persistent snapshots since you're using Veeam. I'll add that it uses non-persistent snapshots by default. You didn't mention that, but it's something to be aware of. Alternative approaches and best practices. Review backup schedule. If high I/O is a recurring issue at 2 a.m., consider rescheduling the backup to a time with lower activity or investigate the cause of the high I/O. It may also be worth trying the backup at a different time to see if the timeout still occurs. Stagger backups. If you have multiple servers backing up at the same time, consider staggering the backup schedules to reduce the load on the storage system. Hardware provider. If FS01 is using a SAN or other storage appliance, check if a hardware VSS provider is available and properly configured. Hardware providers can often improve performance. Check for disk errors. Run check disk on the volumes being backed up to check for and fix any disk errors. Comprehensive analysis of the scenario. Let's walk through a more detailed analysis, incorporating these points. Event viewer. Look for VSS errors, event IDs 8193, 12289, etc. and vol snap errors, event IDs 25, 33, 36, etc. around 2 a.m. Check for errors related to specific writers, event IDs in the 200s, 500s, 8000s, etc. Examine the event details for specific error codes, e.g., 0x800-423F4, 0x800-42306. These codes can be looked up in Microsoft's documentation or online resources.
So this code errors also, it is related here. If we go to the documentation, we will see another, let me show you all something here. If we go there, there is the error codes. Okay, here we can see these are the errors. So you need to open the volume shadow copy events and see these codes, which will give you a hint about what's going on. The shadow copy provider had an error. Please see the system and application events for more information. This is one thing. So this is a good thing also to see.
Resources. SADMIN. SADMIN list writers. Identify any writers in a failed or waiting for completion state. Note the last error for each writer. SADMIN list providers. Confirm which provider is being used, software or hardware. SADMIN list shadow storage. Check the current usage and allocated space. If the usage is high, Consider increasing the allocation or deleting old shadow copies. Resource monitor/performance monitor. Focus on disk activity, disk queue length, disk reads/writes around 2 a.m. High disk queue lengths indicate I/O bottlenecks. Identify any processes that are consuming a lot of disk I/O. Veeam logs. Check the Veeam backup and replication logs for more specific error messages related to the VSS timeout. Look for any error codes or messages that can be referenced in Veeam's knowledge base. Application logs. If a specific writer, e.g., SQL Server writer, is failing, check the corresponding application's logs, e.g., SQL Server error logs. Disk shadow testing. Use disk shadow to simulate a VSS snapshot during a period of high I/O. This will help determine if the timeout is related to server load. Example commands. Disk shadow/l, c:\disk shadow, .log set verbose on set context volatile add volume c. Begin backup, create end backup exit. Use code with caution. Troubleshooting steps. Based on the information gathered, take appropriate action. Restart services. Restart the volume shadow copy service and any failed writer services. Increase shadow copy storage. Use sadmin resize shadow storage. Reschedule backups. If high I/O is a problem, adjust the backup schedule or investigate the cause of the I/O bottleneck. Address application-specific issues. If a specific application writer is failing, troubleshoot the application itself. Check for disk errors. Run check disk. Install a hardware provider. If available and appropriate, install and configure a hardware VSS provider. Reboot the server if necessary. Senior IT, you're doing great. This detailed approach will help you tackle most VSS issues. Remember to document your findings and the steps you take. We will continue with more scenarios in the following phases. Do you have any questions before we move on?
So very, very good explanation and very, very detailed answer, even though he didn't provide some scripts like Claude, but this is the first time I am impressed with the answer of Gemini Pro. So this is a good one. If you go and see the answer of Claude concerning the same topic, let's go and see what will be the answer.
I'll simulate this learning interaction between a senior IT admin, me, and junior IT admin, simulated responses, focused on VSS troubleshooting. Senior IT, let's start by having you explain your current understanding of VSS troubleshooting. What do you know about the process and steps involved? Junior IT, well, from what I understand, VSS troubleshooting usually starts when backups fail or when we get errors about shadow copies. I know we should check the event viewer for VSS-related errors and use the sadmin command to see if writers are stable. But honestly, I'm not always sure what to do with the information I find. Senior IT, that's a good start. Let me help structure your understanding. Can you try drawing out or describing what you think the VSS troubleshooting workflow should look like? Junior IT, I'll try to map it out. Check if backup failed. Run sadmin list writers. Look at event viewer. Maybe restart some services? I'm not very confident about the specific steps or order though. Senior IT, I appreciate your honesty. Let me help you build a more comprehensive understanding. Here's the systematic approach to VSS troubleshooting. Initial assessment. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag first. Always check writer status sadmin, list writers sadmin list providers sadmin list shadow storage. Common error patterns. Writer errors 0x8004230F. Storage space issues 0x8004231F. Service issues 0x8004231. Systematic troubleshooting flow. Mermaid. Copy. Graph TDA. Backup failure. B. Check VSS writers. B. Failed writers. C. Restart related services. B. Storage issues. D. Check shadow storage. B. Service errors. E. Verify service status. C. F. Recheck writers D. G. Resize or clean shadows E. H. Restart key services. Let's try a real scenario. Your backup job failed with error 0x8004230F. What would be your first steps? Junior IT. Based on what you've shown, I would run sadmin list writers to check writer status. Look for any writers showing as failed. If I find failed writers, restart their associated services. Is that the right approach? Senior IT. Good thinking. Let's expand on that. Here's a practical script you can use. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag save as check VSS health.ps $1 failed writers equals sadmin list writers select string state asterisk backslash 1 backslash. If dollar failed writers. Write warning failed writers found. Dollar failed writers for each object dollar writer name equals dollar underscore split writer name. 1. Trim. Dollar writer state equals dollar underscore split state. 1. Trim. PS custom object at writer equals dollar writer name state equals dollar writer state. Hashtag check shadow storage space admin list shadow storage select string. Use shadow copy storage space. Would you like to try another scenario to practice this approach? Junior IT. Yes, that would be helpful. The script makes sense. It's checking for writers that aren't in state 1 and then showing storage space. What kind of scenario should we look at? Senior IT. Let's tackle a common issue. Your server is showing this error in Event Viewer. Volume shadow copy service error. Unexpected error calling routine reg open key xw. HR equals 0x800700005. Access is denied. How would you approach troubleshooting this? Let's continue this interaction based on your preference for the next scenario to explore. How would you like to proceed with this troubleshooting scenario? Would you like to try diagnosing the access denied error, or should we explore a different VSS issue? Copy. Retry. Claude does not have the ability to run the code it generates yet. Oh. Junior IT. Before troubleshooting approach, which event ID should I look when having issues with VSS? Senior IT. Good question. It's essential to know which event IDs to look for when troubleshooting VSS issues. Let me help you understand the most critical VSS-related event IDs. Key VSS event IDs to monitor. Copy.
So let's continue, guys.
Critical/error events. Event ID 8193. Access issues with VSS registry keys. Event ID 12289. VSS provider errors. Event ID 7023. Shadow copy provider service termination. Event ID 12292. Error creating shadow copy provider com class. Event ID 513. Cryptographic services issues with VSS. Event ID 25. Shadow copy creation timeout. Diff area issues. Warning events. Event ID 12290. VSS writer warnings. Event ID 13. Com server startup issues. Event ID 8213. VSS writer permission issues. Informational. Event ID 7001. Shadow copy creation status. Event ID 7002. Shadow copy deletion status. Let me show you how to efficiently check these in PowerShell. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag check for VSS-related errors in the last 24 hours. $events equals get twin event filter hashtable at log name equals application. System level equals 1, 2, 3 hashtag error critical warning start time equals get date dot add days -1. Where object $_ message match VSS shadow copy volume shadow. $events select object time created ID level display name message. Would you like me to show you some examples of what these events look like in practice and what they typically indicate? Junior IT. Yes, that would be helpful. I sometimes see event ID 12292 in our environment, but I'm not always sure what it means or how to address it. Could you explain that one specifically? Senior IT. Absolutely. Event ID 12292 is a common one. Let me break it down. Plain text. Copy. Event ID 12292 breakdown. Source. VSS description. Volume shadow copy service error. Error creating shadow copy provider com class common causes. 1. Com plus registration issues. 2. Permissions problems. 3. Corrupted VSS provider registration. Here's how to investigate and resolve event ID 12292. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag Step 1. Check VSS service status. Get service VSS. SysApp. Select object name. Status. Start type. Hashtag Step 2. Verify provider registration. Admin list providers. Hashtag Step 3. Common resolution steps. $services to restart equals at VSS, hashtag volume shadow copy SysApp, hashtag com plus system application event system. Hashtag com plus event system. For each, $service in $services to restart. Right host, restarting $service. Restart service name, $service force, start sleep seconds 2. Remember, event ID 12292 often requires service restarts in a specific order. The com plus services must be running before VSS. Would you like to see more examples of other common event IDs and their troubleshooting approaches? Copy. Retry. Claude does not have the ability to run the code it generates yet. Junior IT, let's return to our last common issue, this error in Event Viewer. Volume shadow copy service error. Unexpected error calling routine reg open key xw. HR equals 0x800700005. Access is denied. Senior IT. Alright, let's tackle this access is denied error. How would you approach troubleshooting this issue? Junior IT. Since it mentions reg open key xw and access denied, I think it's related to registry permissions. Should I check the registry keys related to VSS? But I'm not sure which keys to look at or what permissions they should have. Senior IT. Good thinking. This is indeed a registry permissions issue. Let me help you with a structured approach to troubleshooting this specific error. First, let's verify the error details. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag check recent VSS-related events. Get twin event filter hashable at log name equals application level equals 2 hashtag error start time equals get date data add days -1 where object $_ message match VSS. The key registry locations we need to check are PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag VSS registry paths $VSS reg paths equals at HKLM /system /current control set /services /VSS HKLM /system /current control set /services /VSS /diagram HKLM /software /Microsoft /Windows NT /current version /profile list. Here's a script to check and fix permissions. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag check and fix VSS registry permissions for each $path and $VSS reg paths. $ASL equals getASL path $path. Hashtag check if system has full control $system found equals $ASL. Access where object $_identity reference. EQNT authority /system and $file system rights. EQ full control if not $system found. Right warning fixing permissions for $path $rule equals new object system. Security.access control.registry access rule. NT authority /system. Full control allow $L to add access rule $rule. Say L path $path L object $L. After fixing permissions, let's restart the relevant services. PowerShell. Copy. $services equals at VSS. Crypt SVC, event system. For each $service and $services, restart service name, $service force, start sleep seconds 2. Finally, verify the fix. PowerShell. Copy. Sadmin list writers. Some important tips. Always back up the registry before making changes. Make sure you're running PowerShell as administrator. Document any changes you make. Verify VSS functionality after the fix. Would you like to try running through these steps in a test environment first? Also, I can explain why each step is necessary if you'd like more detail. Junior IT. Yes, I'd like to understand why we check those specific registry paths and why we need to restart those particular services. Also, what happens if the permissions fix doesn't resolve the issue? Senior IT. Excellent questions. Let me break it down. Registry paths. Explanation. Plain text. Copy. HKLM. Backslash system backslash current control set backslash services backslash VSS. Contains core VSS service configuration. Must be accessible by system account for VSS to function HKLM. Backslash system backslash current control set backslash services backslash VSS backslash diagonal. Stores VSS diagnostic information. Used by VSS writers for logging and troubleshooting HKLM. Backslash software backslash Microsoft backslash Windows NT backslash current version backslash profile list. Contains user profile information required for shadow copy creation of user data. Service restart explanation. Plain text. Copy. VSS volume shadow copy. Main service that needs to reinitialize with new permissions crypt SVC, cryptographic services. Handles authentication for VSS operations. Used by system writer event system. Manages COM+ events used by VSS. Required for writer communication. If permissions fix doesn't work, here's our escalation path. PowerShell. Copy. Hashtag Step 1. Check for VSS provider issues admin list providers. Hashtag Step 2. Verify VSS writer states admin list writers. Hashtag Step 3. Check system files integridisc / scan now. Hashtag Step 4. Check VSS related system files $VSS files equals at $NV. Winder / system 32 / VSSVC.exe $env. Winder / system 32 / strace.dll $env. Winder / system 32 / smi.dll. For each $file and $VSS files, get item $file, select object name, version info. Would you like to create a test environment where we can safely practice these troubleshooting steps?
So this is a very, very good explanation. Actually, I don't know how does so a very, very complicated answer flawlessly. You can see that the scenario is very, very logical. He's going from one point to another in a very human way. You cannot think for a moment that this scenario is between two or is between the AI or the AI is creating the scenario. It's very, very simple, and actually uh, I don't think if this scenario can be happening in certain situations. So it's not a fantasy scenario. This appears to be very, very real, and actually the scripts are very, very real. So what amazes me that Claude have a very, very good way for explaining and scripting. Okay, so we will stop at this point because after that we will go to other common issues and troubleshooting scenarios. But as you can see, the most comprehensive answers is from Gemini Pro experimental platform or experimental AI, which is 1206. And you can see the answer of Claude. The two are like competing. I don't know which answer is perfect, but from my point of view, I really go with the Claude answer. But also Gemini has a lot of things he's giving. For example, pages number that you can refer to in the PDF to continue troubleshooting. Actually, a very, very interactive way of learning. I prefer to use the AI tools to have a comprehensive and interactive learning way. So in the upcoming video with Godwill, we will continue the common issues and troubleshooting scenarios uh, that is introduced by Claude, and then we can go further if we need to, because actually Gemini also will go and will give us a lot of scenarios which are very, very good. So stay tuned. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.